Everyone is saying it that altcoins are dead, that the 4-year cycle is over, and that 2026 will mark the start of a long, painful bear market in crypto. But what if I told you that the reality could be quite the opposite, right? That while most are preparing for another crypto winter, a select few may be getting positioned for one of the biggest surprises yet. And before we dive in, I'd like to hear from you out there in the audience. Do me a favor, stop what you're doing right now and type the word done in the comments section if you think that the altcoin run is finished, or type the word run if you believe that 2026 might just catch everyone off guard and we'll have a rally throughout the year of 2026. My name is Paul Sampson. Welcome back to DataDash. Now, folks, in today's video, I'm going to take a look at a few different things, not just necessarily individual altcoins. I'm going to take a look at Ethereum versus Bitcoin, which to me has always paved the way to kind of showcase how when we can anticipate for ETH to outperform Bitcoin at times, which usually leads to altcoin movements with it, right? Ethereum doesn't usually just pop on its own. Either way, the chart setup I've been looking at still insinuates that we will see a ETH outperformance of Bitcoin going into the year 2026 here, right? And not just because of a contrarian outlook or anything like that. Just now that we are here with the information at hand, this is what it is showcasing to me. And this is what I'll be looking for until otherwise, right? So as well as that, we have a possible Bitcoin dominance drop that could be happening during that same time frame. And usually when we see dominance drop in Bitcoin, that is when we traditionally see funds rotate from Bitcoin into the altcoins, if only for a minute. The things I'm going to show here really are on a higher time frame outlook here, folks. And this is something that I've been monitoring along the way here. I'm going to show you how the ETH BTC chart compared up to the last move that we just saw, where we went from $1,400 to $4,900 with an over 250% rally, and what we can anticipate seeing out of ETH in the coming 12 to 15 months. So before we begin with that, I just wanted to take a look at where Bitcoin is today. All right, so we've seen a run up towards $126,000, and you can see right here that I have a weekly chart pulled up here where we're looking at weekly candles, and we have not closed a weekly above that 123,000. We pushed up to 126 briefly, but you can see how this level has remained a really big area, which if you're in the Discord, you'll know why that level is very significant to me. But in any case, I'm just going to point out that this is a likely area that we put in a significant high here for a period, and whether or not that's going to mean we are going to see a huge bear market reversal, or we are just putting in a high, right? Similar to what we did right here, similar to what we did right here, similar to what we did back in at $30,000 essentially, right? The entire run up. This is definitely an area that is a high at the moment, right? So no doubt about that. Now we're down 20%. So the thing here is that many are anticipating 2026, especially like if we start to lose 100,000 again, that it would be a huge bear market like we've seen in the past. I want to point out the situation where we actually just range around within this region, all right, for a couple more months here, potentially into the beginning of next year. And it doesn't mean we can't go down to like high 80s into the 90s, but just basically ranging around in this region here, especially around this $97,000 area. If this area is held as support, we could very well see this as the base case for the next leg higher. And in this theory, I'm looking at this to actually take place during 2026, okay, when everybody else would be really, really fearful, thinking that we're in the middle of a bear market, okay? Now let's take a look at what the altcoins could look like during that same time frame. So in this first instance here, I want to take a look at the Bitcoin dominance, which has been in a humongous range for the last few years. We've basically had a stairs up situation right here where we had nothing but upside basically ever since the 2022 low, the FTX collapse, which has been why Bitcoin has been outperforming the market as a whole. But what we've done here is we've breached out into this region, we've broken back into our range, and we've back tested our range high now twice. Once with a nice big wick on our consolidation or our liquidation day back in October 10th, and then we back tested it really cleanly just recently as well last week. And when we came down to this low here back in August, I was originally looking for something along these lines regardless, right? So this is a little line I put here, not because this to say, oh, it went exactly there or anything, but I'm anticipating this to be a drop. We'd look for a lower high and then the downtrend to essentially continue. And this could very well have gotten up to 65%. Still very well could, I suppose, and still be putting in a lower high. But as long as we're within this range, which is now basically under 62%, The idea here is that we will seek out our natural target area, which is the point of control, which is essentially all the way down at the bottom of the range. Now, there are things along the way that I wouldn't overlook. This region right here, which has been our previous resistance up until it flipped to support, is a really big one. And again, that's like down at like 48%. This area is also the gold pocket of this overall rally to the upside. If we take a Fibonacci retracement from the low to the high, you can see that right here at that level is where we're coming in with our gold pocket as well. So not to say we have to just completely melt down to the downside. There is definitely levels in between here. This middle of the range area, about 50%, is also a big area. And then looking at this as well, even if we are to go down and see something like this, where we come all the way back down on 40% Bitcoin dominance, this is something that I don't imagine would happen overnight. Again, we're on a weekly time frame just looking at this. This is going back to like 2017, sorry. This whole move right here was 3 years in the making, just the last rally up. Very well could take us, a year, 15 months to come down to these levels, which is in alignment with some of the things I'm looking at when I look to ETH BTC, when I'm looking at the total dominance for the altcoins. Essentially pair that Bitcoin dominance setup where we could see a decline there, which again, if the Bitcoin dominance drops, generally we see altcoins go to the upside. We do still have this valid setup here for Ethereum BTC, and this is a 6-year-long bullish reversal harmonic, a sequence of Fibonacci's with very specific ratios, targets, rulings, etc. And again, this is something that took 6 years to basically print for the setup, for the pattern at play. And in this case, it will take us roughly 30 to 50% of how long it took us to make this to get to our target areas. So about a year and a half to 3 years from completion zone, which was April of this year. Now, we already got a sizable move off of the completion zone here, which was again in April. We got a really big run to just about our first major target, which is the 382 area. We hit a yearly pivot at that area, which is the average of price from last year, and got a small cool down back to our local 382 right here. So that's just pulling back right there. Again, weekly time frame here. In this move, which was approximately 150%, this is when we saw ETH go from $1,400 earlier this year to $4,900. Now, again, we're cooling off just a bit, but overall, I'm anticipating this to just be that, a cool off, as long as we're not losing key support back down here. And we're looking for a continuation throughout the next coming months here. I have a target zone here as far as coming into this region. I'm not overly married to it, but this is just something that we've been looking to ever since 2023, basically. The idea at hand is that, again, ETH BTC has pushed up. We're getting a cool down, and we are likely to push back through and reach these next target areas in the coming months here, potentially as we go into December of 2026. Okay, so again, that's between now and a year from now, basically. And this could get as deep as February of 2027. And again, in this case, this is showcasing that ETH is poised to potentially outperform Bitcoin in the near term here, right? So doesn't mean Bitcoin doesn't go up or anything like that, but if we see Bitcoin ranging around this region for the next few weeks and months, and ETH potentially has a pop to the upside, which we could see, or vice versa, everything just ranges around here for a little bit. Bitcoin finally gets its footing. Sometime next year, we get a next leg up in Bitcoin, and we see the altcoins rally substantially as well. And I don't necessarily know that all altcoins will rally. I'm looking specifically at the ETH BTC pair, which is that just means Ethereum. So I can't state that just means guaranteed, crazy altcoin run. But looking back at even just this first move here, where we saw this ETH go from 1,400 to 49 over the last few months, the altcoins as a whole didn't do terrible, right? The overall market maybe didn't do amazing, but there were definitely some big winners. This is a time when CRO popped over 300% in just the course of a few weeks. We now even recently have Zcash and some of these others popping off 15x over the last few months. So it would be interesting, especially if we saw something like this during next year, right? Where I think that a lot are really worried right now. And again, I'm not advocating to go out and just dump everything in altcoins because everybody's afraid that they're not going to pump. And there's potential here for, again, this is things that sometimes I'm talking to somebody that's already in the market, or in this sense, if you are going to try to capture this potential rally here, just make sure to manage your risk accordingly, okay? This is altcoins we're talking about. Personally, I'm 90% as far as my altcoin allocations go into Ethereum. 10% is what I put into other assets that that I'm willing to risk on, that I can totally live without if they end up going to zero, okay? And that's truly, I think that's where we are in the market, is in the crypto market at this point, is you really have to be prepared for these altcoins, aside from maybe the top 10, whatever. But if it's anything outside of that, some of these ones that are a little bit more risky, riskier plays that have potentially more upside, gotta be aware that we are so frothy at these levels. And on top of that, very likely at some point regulation or something comes down the pipeline and shuts down all these excessive crypto altcoins, especially, right? All these millions and millions of coins that have just been generated out of nowhere. These are not where I'd be putting crazy life savings or anything into, but there is going to be opportunity at hand. I think that there will be pops along the way here. And there's a really big setup here. I think that as we walk into the next year, that we could see a substantial rally again in the crypto market and the stock market most likely as well. Okay, so this all ties into my overall 20-year cycle theory, where 2026 is, in my eyes, going to be a big year. Yet to be seen, of course, but this is what I'm looking at between Bitcoin dominance and the ETH BTC pair. And that's just two examples. I have several other ones that all align with a decent move as we go into 2026 towards that end. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we're, won't see anything until then. It's meaning that if something starts to pop off, it would be relatively soon, and it could run through the end of next year and into 2027 and so far and so forth. So will be interesting to see how it goes. I'm interested to know what you all think down in the comment section below. And if this has helped shift your perspective at all, please don't just sit on the sidelines. I post all of my daily market updates, trade setups, and full analysis over at datadashpro.com. You also get access to our educational course, the full Discord community, and Nicholas Merton's monthly Dash report. Everything you need to stay informed and ahead of the crowd. Thank you all, as always, so much for watching. Stay sharp, stay patient. I'll see you on the next video. And until then, everybody, cheers.